How did that
Are you
sound with
there,
the beeps?
Jamie? Your beep was about an hour behind my beep. A second, sorry.
An hour?
Yeah. Right, we're trying to sync cameras up from other ends of the city through very delayed internet. And
This is the future of vlogging. I'll just let you know right now. We did it first.
we did this first, yeah. This is
Yeah.
lockdown vlogging coming to you live recorded from Jamie's. Where are you? In your dining room?
Yeah, I'm in the dining, the piano room we call it.
Ah, now that is posh.
It's not. Piano's just like for show, it's rubbish.
So, we, as every biker does, and groups of bikers, we have discussions all the time on who's got the best bike and who's got this and who's that and would you ride that. And we've actually come up with a discussion that we think it might be hot topic, really, I would say. And it's a debate as old as time as to whether you should pick a Euro bike or a Japanese bike.
There's no debate though, is there?
It causes mass debate.
I'll mass debate this all day long.
Right, let's get started. We've got a few talking points. We're trying to, we're going to tell you the reasons why you shouldn't, or maybe should, buy a European bike. And when we're talking European, we mean KTM, Ducati, Triumph, BMW. Is that it? The top four?
Pretty much everything that runs a V twin engine or a V engine, really.
Although Suzuki SVs are actually pretty good bikes, aren't they? They're in your pond.
Yeah, but are they? Yeah, they're all right.
Right, so the first thing.
Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've got a couple of points. Sean, let's just clear things up before we get going into this because you're going to see a very clear divide between our opinions on this. Sean, obviously, is a massive fan of the V-twin and the European bike. Despite the horror stories of having horrendous rebuild times on them and service intervals and all that sort of stuff, he still went and bought one. I've owned a KTM EXC450, kind of the same in terms of, you know, your servicing intervals and all that. The rebuilds on them are really, really, really close. I can't remember what they are, but it's like minimal. It's so little wear before you've got to rebuild them. And that really put me off. Sean looked into all this before he bought his KTM and he was just like, yeah, sign me up. I love it. It's exactly what I want.
I want some of that.
Here. He wrote a blank check and gave it to the dealer and says, every time I come back, you just sort that out, matey. Don't you worry about it. I'm the other way. I prefer the Jap bikes. They get a bit of a chavvy stigma about them, but you just can't argue with the noise they make. And the way they deliver the power is just, they're so smooth, and you know what I mean? There's an escalation of power as you're going up the rev range. Whereas with V-twins and like most European bikes, the power's kind of there, it's all the way through. It's a good thing and a bad thing. I think they sound like a bag of spanners. That's just how it is. I like a bike that screams. You get a lot of sense of speed from the sound a bike makes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say...
I mean, how much trouble did you get before you put your exhaust on? You couldn't really hear your bike.
No, it was all wind noise.
While you were
really.
riding it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's hard. That is hard to ride a bike when they're like that because you can't be looking down at the clocks all the time to see what your revs are at. You kind of feel it and hear it as you're going into a corner.
Yeah.
So instantly off the bat, like the Jap bikes, they're a big tick for me there.
Although, there is like when you think of the new Ducati V4s, the Aprilia RS V4, they're kind of 4-cylinder, but V, so you're still getting all that torque, but you're kind of getting the, I wouldn't say the reliability, but you're getting that kind of rev through like a straight
What
four.
are you saying?
It just sounds
What do
good.
you get?
I would say, so the first thing is reliability, which when it comes to European stuff, I mean, I did have a look before this to just say, here you go, Jamie, look at this. And yeah, actually they are the most unreliable bikes. Like per 1,000 being returned within 3 years with issues. BMW
I would
are
like to
actually
say
really
that
bad.
I bet there's more to it than just the build style of the engine, though. It's probably more that people don't look after them.
Yeah.
Because they are temperamental and they are a bit highly strung, there comes a responsibility to service them and look after them properly. And I think 9 out of 10 people don't do that. They expect them to just work.
Yeah. Although you do get like the Ducatista owner that just books it for every service. They like when the van turns up with the neighbours all looking and it gets pushed in the van, taken away, gets it serviced, comes back, puts it in the living room, cleans it up. So you do get that kind of thing. But then they're not really ridden that much. So maybe that's against them. Maybe because they're not being ridden well. But yeah, to say, like you think with yours, you had your KTM for a month and then you were like, I'm really going to book this in for a service. And yet my old Yamaha, we had the Yamaha WR at the time, that was just sat on the garage floor as an engine for like 3 months, and then we just started it up first kick and we're like, who needs
Got
a
left
service?
outside in the rain and all sorts just to like...
use the rain to clean it
it's in the
through.
way.
And you were like, KTM, I'll probably best get this booked in. And you did.
Yeah, but my KTM did actually start the valve clearances. They needed doing on them after about 5 rides, I think it was, we'd been on. Not even long rides and not hard rides, but the sound of the engine changed like quite dramatically, and I kind of realised, I looked into it and I was like, all right, that's the valve clearances need doing. Now, whether when I bought it, they hadn't been done for a while and they were almost due, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was like, I ain't risking that, and
No.
I took it down and got it done. And it wasn't that bad. It only cost me like 80 quid or something to get it done. So it ticked the box for that, and it was a good bike. But yeah, I don't want to live my life a service at a time.
Dom Toretto there.
No.
See,
Yeah.
that's the thing with the KTM. I'm worried about like when people are like, oh, map it, get a few more horsepower, and I'm a bit like, I don't know. And then you get all the booster boys in America who are like, big turbo, do it. Why not? And they're like stock internals, 200 horsepower, shot a NOS as well for good luck, and they don't care.
Yeah.
And then you get those guys that are a bit like, I don't know. What's that air temperature like? Is that going to be damaging the bike today? Probably best leave it in the garage.
What's the humidity? Yeah.
Right. What other things are we touching on here?
So let's sum that up there. So reliability, Jap or European?
Well, I think from that it's definitely European. Is that what we were getting on?
Yeah. If you had your reverse goggles on, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Jap is good, reliability wise, service wise. I would say Jap.
They have like the kind of reputation that, like, I don't know if you know about Honda Civics and things like that, but they've always had a reputation of being kind of bulletproof, and it takes a lot to damage them and blow them up, and you can just run them into the ground basically. And that's kind of the same ethic I get with the bikes. They're built in such a way that they just last.
Yeah, do whatever to a Jap bike, and it will just keep going.
It'll be all right.
Yeah, you got it.
We'll tick that for the Japanese bikes then.
Do you reckon? So let's
I'll take the
go.
win.
So you mentioned that they look fast but sound slow because of the old.
Yeah. Like the Panigale Speciale, like the V4. I think the 2021 as well. They've done a V4 Speciale, and it looks amazing. Like the lines and everything. It's so. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like relevant. It's now. It looks like it belongs in 2020, and it's really sharp lines, and it looks like it's aggressive, like it's lunging forward, and the colours are amazing on it.
If that went past at 100 mile an hour in third gear,
In the back of a van.
and then as Gix 1000 went past in third gear at 100, you would think the Gixxer was going way quicker, just through the noise alone.
Yeah. I guess that could be taken as a good thing or a bad thing, because it does draw quite a lot of attention.
Yeah. I
mean,
think they're still loud.
You can get eyeballed by police just by doing 30 mile an hour in first gear on a GSXR.
Yeah.
GSXR, yeah. And it's just, they kind of scream. Even when you're not going quick, they're like, ah! The V-twins are just kind of plodding along like, beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, they're like the tractors. The tractors of the bike world.
That could not be a better comparison.
You reckon? Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know. Like you say, the V-twins and the V4s, they sound like a bag of spanners with dry clutches when they're sat idling. And let's face it, if you're going anywhere on it, at some point you're going to roll up idling for a couple of seconds before you turn it off. So if you didn't like that noise, you're going to have to deal with it at some point. Go into a bike cafe for a cup of coffee or something on your way home. Do you know what I mean? You've got to pull in there, and then you've got that rattling like as you're parking up, and everyone's looking at you like, that's a really nice looking bike, but it doesn't sound right. So anybody who doesn't know about dry clutches, they're going to be thinking, your bike's knackered, mate. What's up with that? They sound
Why do
horrendous.
they have a dry clutch?
I couldn't tell you. No idea.
Why is that a thing?
It's just, I don't know. There's got to be. Is it to do with the torque? Because a wet clutch,
I don't
maybe
know.
you can't put the torque through one. I don't know. I know that obviously the V engines have got a bit more torque to them, haven't they? Than
I do not know.
if you know, enlighten us in the comments. Just tell us why.
Us.
Yeah, I'm not going to Google it because I don't care enough to want to know. I'm never going to buy one.
See, one thing as well is that with them being unique, they attract quite a bit of attention, but it is kind of the wrong attention. Like I think both times we've been stopped somewhere in a petrol station, or there was that time we was doing a few flybys to get exhaust numbers, and that guy just came out from a bush, and he was like, oh, what bike you got there? Do you remember that? And it's like, what is it?
What bike's that then?
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, you end up in a half-an-hour conversation with a bloke who's twice your age.
Yeah.
I can't tell if you're being groomed or not. It's something weird going on.
Every
time I turn up, you're there getting chatted up by an old bloke.
Let's get you home. They do attract some odd attention, I would say. I think
They attract a lot of attention, but they bring the slightly unusual people out as well, don't they? Who would normally keep quiet and not say anything. They're kind of like, ooh.
Yeah. I think certain stuff's, when it looks quite striking, or it's not as usual to see out and about, a lot of people will. Maybe it's my approachable face as well. People think, I'm going to talk to that guy. Whereas you maybe look a bit more hostile. When someone walks near you and you're like, don't come near me, they're like, okay.
Oh, it's my defence mechanism.
Yeah.
First line of defence, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. What do you think then?
Well,
would you have the new Panigale Speciale V4 for, what is it, 13,000 you can get roughly second hand? Couple of years old?
I've no doubt that they probably ride very nice, and they're tricked out. Handling's, I imagine, very, very good on them, and the styling is very, very nice. And I'm not even biased in this because I have had a V4 before, and I did love it. Absolutely adored that bike. It was my first kind of big bike getting into bikes. I had the VFR 400 NC30, so with a single swinging arm, it was like
A classic.
yeah, it was nice. And I get it, but I've been there and done that, and I just kind of, when you get up into bigger bikes, like the sort of real bikes, I don't know, there's just something, the styling is on point with them, but I can't get on with the engines and the sound of them. They just irritate me. They're like old man bikes.
It is hard to ride. Like going from being able to absolutely nail it on my old R6 to going on this and thinking it's not loads faster either. Like I wouldn't say it's any quicker than yours, and it's got an extra 450cc compared to yours, and it's not really much quicker. If anything, I wouldn't say they're probably like
And
level pegging.
That would disappoint me. That would disappoint me massively.
Yeah, it disappointed me.
Well,
Yeah.
what is the rest of that displacement doing in your engine? Is it not being used, or is it just useless?
I think it's because of, hence why Ducati did go for the V4 in the end, because they were like, everyone's pushing 200 horsepower, and if we keep with the V twin, we just can't, there is only so much we can do with it. And I think that's why these have like 1200cc, just to be able to keep up with probably like a 750. There's no way this is as quick as a new litre bike, or even the litre. I would say if you had the GSX 1000 from 2010, it probably would annihilate this as well. But it does have.
But then, what does that
certain
say
charm.
about the engine? That we've established that they're not really that reliable, and they're not very fast, and they don't sound very good. So I mean, where are we going with this conversation?
But it is weird. Like, I do love it. I get on it and I go, it's amazing. You ride it and it's so narrow because of that V twin. It's so narrow. Like, I've never ridden a bike that was as slim as that. And then you've got the brakes, and it's when it's got those Brembos up front, and you've got all that engine braking. You're stopping and you're thinking, I could have stopped way later than that, just through the engine braking alone. Let alone when you like hit that brake lever, and you've got them massive Brembos grabbing as well, and you tend to get pretty decent suspension on a lot of the Euro stuff as well. So it's all kind of...
They always seem well kitted out, like the brakes and everything on them always seem to be like top end, don't they?
I think that's why, although they never have the power, I think the chassis makes up for it. So when you do ride them on track, they kind of level peg almost, because although you don't have the straight line speed, you can brake a lot later, probably corner a bit quicker.
I would say yours is probably a lot more agile.
Yeah.
I bet if we got on like Cadwell, I bet yours would probably walk all over mine.
Yeah, because it's quite a tight circuit, that as well, isn't it? So yeah. So when you rode mine, what did you think? You wouldn't swap the keys for it?
No, like I said, it's not that they're bad to ride, it was just that it just doesn't tickle me that way. I just get on it and I'm like, yeah, this is nice and it's quite nimble, and like the power delivery is so strange on it.
It's
like you said as well,
twitchy
like,
almost. At low revs.
Yeah, like it's there. It's the very tiniest little touches, like ooh like that, and you like, bloody hell, that's got some poke. But then as soon as you pull it back, it's like there's none of this graduation of power where you're like, oh, and it's pulling. It's just there, and it's that all the way to the top.
So maybe that's the addiction. Maybe that's why people like them.
But that would worry me.
Yeah, it worries me. It does worry me.
I like that there's a bit of like, there's almost like a bit of a buffer on my bike. I mean, it's still quick on the low revs. It's not
Yeah.
slow by any means, but it's controllable. It's not like one tiny little twitch and I'm going to flick and high side myself.
Mm.
You can sort of like peel the power on as you're coming out of a corner on it without any worry. You're kind of thinking, yeah, you can just sort of just gradually put it on. Whereas I think on yours, you've kind of got to coast into the corner on the power,
Yeah.
so you're not going to unsettle it.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just different riding styles, and you're going to get used to whatever you're on, aren't you? If you spend enough time on it.
Oh yeah.
I guess I've gone for like the easy version, and you've gone for like the hard setting.
Mm.
You're playing life on hard when you're riding that around the track.
Yeah. Yeah. But it feels good when you get it right as well, I guess. There's a trade-off as well also.
Yeah.
When you get it right, you're like, oh, that was amazing. That was like really good. Got it right. Managed to tame it almost, and you go, yeah, that was good.
Hmm.
Well,
Okay, so
so
sum that up
how
then.
are you fixed then? You sticking with your Jap?
Yeah, I mean, it's still like it's better what you know. Like you say, the better the devil you know. I've spent a lot more time on Jap bikes, but then again, like my V4 was a Jap. Whether there's much difference between the V4 they built and the V4s and V-twins that are about now, I don't know. I mean, it was quite old, quite an old bike. I think mine was a 1990 or 91. So things have changed quite a lot.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, is this solely a debate on the V-twin?
I mean, you have got the S1000RR, but then for that they did end up going. They used the GSXR chassis on the first version of it. They usually use the boxer engine, and they went for a straight 4. And obviously, a lot of the suspension components were all like other companies. I think, what do you get Brembos on there? I think you get Brembos. I'm not sure what forks you end up getting, but so they kind of to make the
they're
S1000.
pretty well spec'd.
Yeah, especially things like the HP4 and everything. They're really
Oh
good.
yeah.
But to make that bike competitive, they had to go down the Jap route almost of the configuration with it.
That says a lot.
It does really. Yeah.
That does say a lot.
I think it's similar in the car world. You buy Ferraris, Porsches, you know that you could get a Nissan that's just as quick and probably more reliable, but there's just something about having something a bit more unique maybe. I'd say that's what it is.
Yeah, there's a bit of a charisma to it. And then again, it's probably owning something that everybody doesn't have.
Yeah.
It's a nice feeling having a car or a bike that you're not going to just see. Like you go out for a ride, I'll see probably 10 GSXRs. I think we've seen one.
RC8.
Yeah, I saw, we've seen 2 RC8s since you've had yours.
Yeah.
And that says, again, that they're either tucked away or they're in the workshop getting rebuilt.
Yeah.
You just don't see them. There's just not that many on the market. I just don't think there's been that many about. And the people that probably do own it have got it as like almost probably like a collectible, I guess.
Just a toy every now and then. Bring it out.
Like the guy who had that Ducati 748 in his living room above his sofa on the wall or whatever it was.
Yeah. See, that's the difference. Would you hang up an R6 or a GSX-R 600 in your living room? Probably not. But an old 90s Ducati, yeah, get it in there. Although your old NC30 you would probably have in the house because it ended up being almost collectible, sought after.
Yeah, they were and they weren't though, because the RVF 400 was kind of the one to have. That was like the race, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was the spec'd one. It was like the race replica, really. The NC was kind of based on the same chassis.
Yeah, I suppose.
But yeah.
Well,
Okay.
that's it then. I think we've discussed enough.
Well,
I think we know where the line lies
But do we?
It's just split, isn't it? It's just split.
You're a very rational person, and I find it so hard to believe that you went the route you went. To be doing, not in like a sense of, oh, you're absolutely mental, I can't believe you bought that bike, but in the sense of knowing what we kind of were going to have planned and thinking about track days and that sort of stuff. I mean, you haven't just gone out and picked an R6 up that was like $3,000. You've gone out and bought an RC8, which has short intervals for servicing, short intervals for rebuilds. And, I mean, you've been all right, but they're kind of renowned for being unreliable as a V-twin.
Yeah.
And yet you want to go fresh it in Spain on a track day.
Yeah.
You want to go to Cadwell and we're going to do miles and miles and miles. And I bought my bike with that in mind, thinking this is just going to do that. I just know it is.
I think, although they did run the RC8 race series for a few years, but I think they kind of ran out of RC8s in the end. Don't know what that,
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, there was that. Yeah, it used to follow the BSB around, I think. But yeah, it just randomly stopped one year. The grid got smaller and smaller, and then poof, gone. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I think
that says a
it
lot.
kind of. I think the point is, if you're gonna go European, you need to expect it isn't going to be as reliable as Jap. It isn't going to be. It's going to cost more to service. It's going to be less reliable. It's going to be harder to ride. But when you get it right, oh, so sweet. Yeah, I think that's it.
Inspirational.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who was looking at getting a new bike and they had a V-twin as an option and they had a Jap bike as an option?
You probably say how long you've been riding, because I would say you'd be able to go and get a 600 Jap as your kind of first bike, but I definitely wouldn't think you'd be able to ride this as your first bike. Not one bit. So it depends. First bike, don't get something like this. But a few bikes down the line, yeah, why not? Give it a go.
When you've hit your 40s and the midlife crisis is creeping in.
Yeah, that's it.
You could say that about any bike.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, that's kind of summed it up anyway. I think I've firmly placed myself on the side that I'm in anyway with Jap bikes, or more specifically not V-twins and not V4s. If I could take like a Jap engine out of, I don't know, like an R1 engine, or like my engine out of my GSXR, I think it's pretty good. Drop that into a Panigale chassis or something. I mean, people will be turning in their graves at the thought of this. But
Oh, yeah.
I think that would be a good combo.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. Right,
Yeah,
we need to wrap
well,
this up.
So let us know if you got triggered and you need some
Did the internet
some
hurt
sort of
you?
medication to chill you down. Yeah, don't stay up all night waiting for people to reply to your comments, because it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, I think we've covered everything. That's how I feel about it. You can try and change my mind.
Change
but
my mind, yeah.
I think I'm pretty set on that.
Yeah. Right. Give us some more subjects to talk about, because there's not a lot else going on, so we might as well do this. Let us know what you think, and yeah, we'll see you again, I guess.